Alright, welcome back. So I got a message recently from Kevin Turley who said that the most interesting thing would be to tell the story. That all of this is one great story and that the most interesting thing would be to tell the story. And yeah, I agree, it is an interesting story, but it's a enormous story that I couldn't possibly fit into one video. Probably couldn't possibly fit into 10 hours of video. So I guess we'll take it out in bite-sized chunks. But previously I was talking about the battle between the higher and the lower self. And Shunyamurti of the Eastern School often talks of the lower depth drive and the upper depth drive, which are very similar. The upper depth drive is about rejecting the ego as an illusion and becoming united with universal truth to end suffering. Now, this is of the Eastern schools, and many Western teachers would not really recognize this as valid, yet more spiritual escapism, something akin to returning to the womb, a pre-birth state, some type of pseudo-mystical nonsense maybe, but I think there's some validity to it, but we'll be focusing on the lower depth drive, which to the Eastern school is identifying with the body and being attached to the world and the things of the world, rejecting truth and living in a fake clown world, which is certainly where most of the normies find themselves these days, and there is a lot of suffering going on in the world because of this. Identifying with a false self, an inauthentic self. This leads to suffering and succumbing to the lower depth drive, i.e., wanting to die to end the suffering, or at least not wanting to live. Either a fast or slow suicide, like hanging or jumping off a cliff or something, or what we see more commonly, well, I guess suicide is definitely on the rise right now. But so is the slow destruction through self-harm, allowing abusive relationships, addiction, things like this. And yes, we seem to have a new type of zombified addict these days, especially in America. These sort of zombie hordes walking around in places like Philadelphia, which I believe is largely a product of the fentanyl epidemic. But yes, this is definitely beyond what we've seen before. I think this has much to do with wanting to escape the reality principle and also the existential dread of the reality of entropy. So they have identified with entropy, not the life principle, succumbing to entropy, allowing the dust to settle. And yes, this is why people like Jordan Peterson say wash your penis and clean your room, because if you have a filthy room and a filthy penis, you are succumbing to entropy. And that cleaning your room and washing your penis is the first, I guess the earliest, most obvious thing you can do to fight entropy. And someone who's truly given up really doesn't do any of this anymore. They don't wash, they don't clean. They just allow the dust to settle. To the more rationalist scientific mind, this would be known as the first law of thermodynamics. Everything eventually deteriorates, falls apart, and fades out. Many in the psychological realm have talked about the abyss. This is the abyss that Nietzsche talks about, where everything falls away into darkness. Depression, anxiety, insanity, and depravity are all products of the abyss. Some suggest that the purpose of the abyss is to lead weak minds to kill themselves. That nature has a force that drags the weaklings off to death, basically, because they cannot cop the reality principle and they have identified with entropy. So one might say, why does entropy exist? And the reason for this is because nothing lasts forever. Things unfold, they grow, they peak, and then they fade away. The only constant is change. And a lot of people can't handle this. I think a lot of people struggle with this. Some people love change, but a lot of people get nostalgic or whatever, and they really don't like change. But what would you prefer? That things stayed the same forever? Would you prefer to live forever as you are right now? Well, nature will not allow it. This is stagnation. And stagnation is death. It's something of a fail-safe of nature and reality, actually. So, like, what if you got stuck in a deep crevasse or an abandoned mine shaft and no one was around to get help? Would you rather die or be stuck there forever? So entropy is always there and will claim us all in the end, but life itself conquers entropy. Despite all efforts to the contrary, despite all the pain and struggle, life goes on. The higher self leads one away from the lower death drive. Not today, it says. Today I shall live. Today I shall thrive. Now, the film The Shawshank Redemption is a great story about the overcoming of entropy through persistence. And the famous line from that movie is, "Get busy living or get busy dying." Alright, everyone. That is entropy and the lower death drive. Get busy living or get busy dying.